Previously on Muffled Killer.
You know, who are the client of the sex workers? The client of sex workers are people who are professional, people who take them to the offices, people who will become like escorts. You can be a personal assistant of someone and you become an escort, and someone pays for your flight, pay for your fare, you become like an escort, you become a personal assistant. But what are you doing? You know, that is sex, escort.
So you think you've married Prince Charming. It's out with the boys. And you're okay because it's always out with the boys. Because if it was with women, you'd be like, hi? Oh, you feel weird. But, oh, niko na my friends wangu machali, we're watching football, we have gone kayaking, or we have gone camping. Kumbe. It's one of his boyfriends that he's entertaining. And finally, he brings you HIV and AIDS.
They tell you 1999.
The National AIDS and STI Control Program NASCOP Director, Dr. Nicholas Muraguri, has conducted various studies on human behavior and the spread of HIV.
The assumption has been that the clients of male sex workers must be a Muzungu coming to Kenya. But the studies done in Mombasa shows up to 90% of their clients actually fellow Kenyans. When you look at who are they, there's been assumption, oh, they could be rich men. No. Our experience has been from street boys to hawkers, to people in the slums, to farmers, to politicians, religious groups, students, everybody's in the mix. These people are with us. They are our brothers, they are our husbands, they are our sons. We are all connected one or the other, directly and indirectly, with their sexual networks.
Why should society bother about male sex workers?
The studies we have done the last 2-3 years shows that there are very many in all urban areas. So the number just tells you there must be enough clients in town. Among themselves, men who have sex with men. Then you will say then the risk is being that group. But now because of evidence of bisexuality, and half of them actually report having sex with women, and even live with women currently. And therefore, it's an important group that we cannot afford to just let go and ignore.
What is the prevalence of HIV among men who sell sex to men, and how does that affect the rest of society?
We estimate that every year there are approximately 120,000 new HIV infections. And out of that, up to 20,000 could be attributable to men who have sex with men.
Dr. Muraguri says whereas the average prevalence of HIV among Kenyan men is 4%, men who have sex with men, be they homo or bisexual, have 3 times higher prevalence. And every 4th male sex worker has tested HIV positive, posting a prevalence that is about 7 times that of the general population of men in Kenya. Other studies have also established that anal sex is up to 5 times more likely to transmit HIV than heterosexual contact, perhaps explaining the discrepancy in prevalence of the virus. This means that the male sex workers and their clients are a high-risk group. Dr. Muraguri says that studies he has conducted have established that 3 out of every 5 clients of male sex workers are married men. With the high prevalence of HIV within this group, it means that their wives are also at risk, and so are their girlfriends and other partners of those girlfriends. Indirectly, the clients' wives may also pass on the virus to their children at birth. So this is a complicated, interwoven web that includes everyone in society.
And therefore this group is actually so integrated with all of us that we cannot afford to ignore it. So we are realizing slowly there is an exploding epidemic of HIV among this population.
Do you have programs that you have targeted at this exploding epidemic, as you put it?
At the moment, the number of civil society groups have come up and we are supporting them to provide comprehensive HIV prevention and treatment services. One of the important tools for HIV prevention among these people is lubricants. And unfortunately, most of them don't have access to the lubricants, which are very key to reduce the risk of HIV transmission when they use a condom. So we have been working with them and also private sector to ensure that the lubricants they may need as part of the commodities for HIV prevention, including condoms, are available even within the market.
There is scientific evidence that these interventions, especially provision of ARVs and condoms, reduces the rate of HIV transmission substantially. But some conditions the sex workers present are unique and find the health workers unprepared.
Even the health workers will not know what to do with them because they have some sexual transmitted infection in places we are not used to, in the throat, in the anus.
One of the sex workers outreach project's activities is the training of health workers who deal with male sex workers. Gloria Gaki offers some tips.
Let's look at them as individuals and they will change the whole HIV spreading. But as long as we label them, we call them those bad names, they will go into hiding and they'll still do what they do, so the HIV transmission will still continue.
But even as NASCOP and SWOP begin to close the tap of HIV infections through male sex workers, it is a fact that prostitution is illegal in Kenya. For this reason, sex workers constantly face violence. Join me in the next and final part of this documentary as we walk down the streets of Nairobi by night.
There you go, right there.
And witness the brutal world of sex trade in Kenya.
Chasing after the girls. One has been caught right there.
Mantuli, as he prefers to be called, has seen the darkest side of sex work. He says he counts himself lucky to be alive today. Mantuli reckons that the Kenyan society is hostile to his trade. And not just that, the fact that he serves male clients constantly puts him at loggerheads with different people. He narrates to me an incident that occurred in March 2011.
Nilikuwa nimetoka Kisumu nikakuja nikaorganize group kupeana education kwa sex workers wakuje kwa clinic.
But once the event was over, things took a different turn.
Nilipatana na vijana hapo nje, wakanisalimia, kasalimika, then wakaniambia niwapatie kakitu, niwapatie 2,000. Nikamwambia sina pesa. Niko na maybe wameunderstand hiyo tumepita. Nikisonga mbele naambiwa tupatie pesa. Nilishikia nimeshikwa hapa, nimenyongwa na hakuna mawe ilitumiwa, hakuna mbao ilitumiwa ama anything add. Nilivamiwa na watu zaidi ya 30 people. Kuuliza ni nini, wananiambia na promote sex wakiendelee.
The gang apparently left him after he fainted. He was later taken to a police station and accused of sodomy. His accuser, however, failed to provide a doctor's letter to prove the claim. The Kenya Human Rights Commission came to Mantuli's rescue.
Wakati wakakuja wakaongea nao wakainsist lazima nipelekwe hospitali.
Monica Kareithi is a human rights lawyer whose job here includes dealing with cases like Mantuli's. She says there's a considerable number of cases of assault and battery, but few, if any, victims make an effort to report them.
They're hard-pressed to go and report these cases to the police because the police, once again, they're threatened that they think the police will not help them because they're sex workers or men who have sex with men.
What complaints do they have with regard to their relationship with police officers?
I find that's a very double-edged sword, if I may say that. I have had occasions to deal with the police, and they're very human rights savvy. They have information on human rights violations, and they usually will take it on merit. So if it's a physical violation, if it's an assault and battery case, they will actually deal with that on that premise.
Mantuli tells a different story.
Mdomo imesumbuka, imepindana hivi, I could not even drink water. Polisi wananiambia niamuke, niende nikafagie huko kwa ofisi na bado natukanwa.
However, they're the individual police, and that's of course not reflecting on the whole police force, just the individual persons who may take advantage and not necessarily report the case or write it out.
Does the law in Kenya protect in any way male sex workers? What options do they have for recourse?
I mean, assault is still a crime in Kenya. When you assault and battery is still a crime in Kenya. So if somebody has physically assaulted you, then you have recourse in the law. You go report it, and you report it as an assault case, assault and battery, and it shall be treated as such according to the penal code with the sanctions that are provided in the penal code.
Monica blames the current situation on ignorance.
People are not aware of their rights, they're not aware of the law, they're not aware of the legal mechanisms for protection. So more often than not, the MSMs who are sex workers do not report, nor do they go and get checked or file medical reports with the medical practitioners when they've been assaulted, so that makes life a bit complicated.
Sex workers face violence and stigma from many quarters. They say that even the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender and intersex community tends to ostracize them, especially if they are known to be HIV positive. They also know some clients to be hostile.
There are a lot of instances where there's cases where people are not, they don't pay for the services, and of course the person cannot claim payment because it's illegal to actually pay and live off the profits of your sales if you're a sex worker. So a lot of the cases you hear are assault and battery cases where they're verbally assaulted or physically assaulted before or after their act.
Unaingia na client kwa room anakuchapa. Na hiyo vita kuna room kuna ma lodgings zinajulikana hii Nairobi na sitazitaja but zinajulikana especially River Road. Unaenda na client anajulikana pale, anaenda anafanya vile anafanya, ukianza kudai pesa zako hata management inaanza kukuchapa, hata management inaingilia sex worker inamchapa, which is very bad.
I see my friend are being beaten every day. I had to go to take them to the hospital. Beaten maybe by their clients. They are being beaten by their clients. They are also beaten by like the police. They are being harassed by the city council every day.
To understand exactly what goes on in the streets at night, my crew and I go for a night shoot. It is Friday. Nairobi is vibrant at night. Sex workers position themselves strategically. Big and small, pregnant and flat-tummied, male and female, they are all here. They mostly walk in pairs or groups for security. They tell me competition for clients is high, but the female sex workers sometimes act as pimps for their male counterparts. Some clients, I'm told, ask for male sex workers after they are done with the female ones. Every so often, the city council van will drive past, perhaps arrest some sex workers. Here, 2 sex workers we believe had been arrested were set free. We bump into an elderly woman selling drugs along the street. Many sex workers abuse hard drugs and drink hard, they say, to numb their feelings. The sex workers mark their territories and guard them with their lives, literally. Any woman who strays into the path of the female sex workers is beaten, verbally abused, and chased away. So to record my clip in front of them here, I asked a male sex worker to walk with me. Hopefully, they would think we are a couple.
Well, it's a tough life out here. It's almost 2 in the morning and here we are in the cold. And there's a car coming. And constantly standing, and you never know when the city council will come and chase you away, and you never know when the police will show up and track you down. And there you go, right there. You can see the city council officers are right here chasing after the girls. One has been caught right there. So this is really the life out here. It is almost 2 a.m. and as you can see, so much drama out here. The girls standing out and the men as well selling sex. But then there's the constant threat of being caught by police officers, the constant threat of being tracked down by city council. It is brutal, it is violent, and that is what they have to endure every day.
We follow the girl who was arrested. I think it is the one who looked pregnant. From her gestures, I imagine she's negotiating her release. One of the officers notices us and so we drive on. Enough for the night. It is clear sex trade is thriving in Nairobi and perhaps here to stay. Driving through the streets of Mombasa by night tells the same story. As long as there are clients seeking their services here and in other places, the sex workers, male and female, will continue to sell their bodies. Many are arrested every day as their clients go scot-free. But they will bribe, sometimes with sex, or have their friends bail them out in the morning and will head back to work the next night. For the male sex workers, as long as stigma at health facilities remains high, they will continue to stay away, all the time spreading HIV and themselves slowly dying from AIDS-related and other complications. Anso Mwendia, KTN, Nairobi.